no, sound issues are the worst, but no worries. We'll get it sorted out. In the meantime, thanks everyone for hanging in there with us. We'll be back up and running in no time.
It's okay. I think we got it taken care of now.
Awesome. That's what I like to hear. So let's dive right back in and keep those questions coming. We are ready to roll.
Hey there, Ron. Welcome. Ellen, good to see you. Hey, Deb.
Hey, everyone. So glad to have you all here. Let's make this an awesome session. If you've got questions, fire away and let's have some fun with it.
Ellen, thank you for the heart me.
Oh, that's awesome, Alan. We appreciate the love. Keep it coming, and let's keep the good vibes rolling.
Anya Ray, Jan, Deb, good to see all of you. Yes, I'm home.
It's
Hey,
always
Jen's
great to
DIY.
have You know it. We're all about those good vibes and keeping things fun and interactive. So let's keep it rolling and see where the conversation takes us.
Thank you, Danny. It's good to be home. We're back. Yes, Ali Fair, we're back. All right, Quinn.
Absolutely.
Hey, lot of changes at the Department of Education since January of 2025. They're down to what, about 50% of the staff that they had in January. Can you explain to everyone what has been going on with the Department of Education?
The Department of Education has definitely been through some major shifts this year. They cut their workforce almost in half to streamline operations, and it's definitely stirred up a bit of controversy.
Wait, stop right there. Don't give me that streamline stuff. Look, the Project 2025 talked about eliminating the Department of Education. What did Donald Trump say about closing the Department of Education?
So Donald Trump actually signed an executive order back in March to dismantle the Department of Education, arguing that education should be handled at the state and local levels. Of course, fully closing the department would need Congress to jump on board, so it's still up in the air.
Okay, so roughly half the staff is gone. What about the money that's been withheld from states over this last month?
In the last month, the Department of Education has withheld about $6.9 billion in federal funding for things like after-school programs and teacher training. The reason given is that they're reviewing these programs to make sure they fit with the administration's priorities, which has definitely left a lot of school districts feeling pretty uncertain.
Subscriber Attitude of Gratitude would like you to please elaborate on the Esther project.
So the Esther Project is essentially a plan that's been put forward to combat anti-Semitism by focusing on certain pro-Palestinian groups, labeling them as part of a Hamas support network. It's definitely controversial, with critics saying it could suppress free speech and unfairly target activists. So it's definitely a hot topic.
Addie, Ellie Fair, Marlis Dawn, Danny the Dog Nanny, Dusty Desert, thank you all for the gifts. Ellen, again, thank you for that heart me.
Absolutely. Big shout out to all of you for the love and support. We appreciate every single one of you for being here and making this so much fun.
Quinn, Ron Parker says, I heard that a Canadian fisherman fishing in Canadian waters was towed by the U.S. Coast Guard into U.S. waters and held for several hours. Is that true?
Yep, that actually happened. A fisherman from Quebec was detained by the U.S. Coast Guard. They claimed he was in U.S. waters, and they held him for a couple of hours before letting him go. Pretty wild, right?
Wild isn't quite the word I would use. Pretty dystopian. Dystopian is a word I would use. pretty sounds like things that we used to be concerned about North Korea doing.
I hear you on that one. It definitely has that unsettling vibe to it. It's the kind of story that makes you do a double take for sure.
Yeah, double take is still that still is leaves it understated, Quinn. I find that especially disturbing. You know, if this was a Canadian fishing in Canadian waters, what business does the United States have towing him into U.S. waters and then detaining him?
Yeah, it's definitely a troubling scenario. It raises a lot of questions about jurisdiction and international boundaries, and it would definitely be something that both countries would need to address to avoid anything like that happening again.
Subscriber Dusty Desert asks, what was the executive order signed today, and where will we put them? Project 2025 and RFK said this would happen.
So the executive order signed today is all about tackling crime and homelessness by directing federal agencies to help cities clear out homeless encampments and route people into treatment centers. The idea is to improve public safety, but of course there are concerns from critics who think it might end up criminalizing homelessness.
Tell me a little bit more. I think Dusty Desert clearly is somewhat familiar with it. I want you to answer it like I have no idea what the executive order is. What did the executive order say? Hey there, Christy. Welcome. Good to see you.
So in simple terms, the executive order that was signed today is all about tackling crime and homelessness. It basically tells federal agencies to help cities and states clear homeless encampments and move people into treatment. It also pushes for stricter enforcement of laws against things like open drug use and camping in urban areas. Of course, there are concerns that this might end up criminalizing homelessness rather than solving the root issues.
Michelle asks, can any of the courts stop that executive order? Sorry, I had you muted there, Quinn, so you couldn't hear me. Can any of the courts stop that executive order? Michelle wants to know.
They definitely can. Courts can block or halt an executive order if they find it unconstitutional or if there's a legal challenge that holds up in court. So if there are lawsuits filed against it, there's a chance that a judge could step in and put a pause on it.
Hey, Joyce, greetings there in Florida. Good to have you with us here. Hi, Mario. Good to have you here.
Hey there, Joyce and Mario. It's awesome to have you both joining us. Hope you're having a great day, and thanks for being part of the fun.
Sleepless, I don't recall saying any such thing. Sleepless says, on your last stream, you said that molesting the homeless was okay since they have no home. I've been thinking I don't agree. That sounds to me like absolute nonsense. I can't imagine you, Quinn, saying anything like that, and I know that I didn't say anything like that.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like absolute nonsense and something that neither of us would ever say. It's always important to set the record straight, so thanks for clarifying that.
Danny Garrett asks, so the executive order is to make homelessness a crime?
Not exactly. The executive order's goal is to address homelessness by clearing encampments and moving people into treatment centers, but critics are concerned that it might effectively criminalize homelessness by enforcing stricter laws around camping and public spaces.
Subscriber Ellie asks, isn't homelessness against the law in San Francisco now? Sure seems like it.
So in San Francisco, recent legal changes have made it possible for the city to enforce laws against sleeping on public property. This means they can issue citations or fines for camping in public spaces, even if there's no shelter available. Of course, how strictly it's enforced can vary.
Ranjit, thank you for sharing the live.
Absolutely. Ranjit, we appreciate you spreading the word. The more the merrier, and we're so glad to have everyone joining us today.
All right, here's an interesting one for you, Quinn. Channel ZTV says, hey, what's your thought about the ongoing baloney crisis of 2025? I believe the market is plummeting due to ongoing demand of baloney.
The great baloney crisis of 2025, Matt. It's wild how demand for baloney has skyrocketed and turned the market upside down. Definitely one of those funny and unexpected twists of the year. Let's see if it continues to be a hot commodity.
Subscriber Christie says, we're already removing homeless encampments. What authority does the federal Fed claim? Is there a law?
So the federal government is leaning on existing laws and public safety regulations to support cities in clearing encampments. They argue that it falls under their authority to ensure public safety and health. Of course, it's a complex issue, and there's definitely debate about the balance between enforcement and supporting people in need.
Michelle makes a point here saying there is no funding available for homeless treatment. What can you say about that? Can you tell us, is there any kind of state or federal funding available to treat or rehabilitate or help out people who are unhoused?
Yes, there is some funding out there on the federal level. There's been a recent executive order directing funds to help relocate homeless individuals into treatment centers. And in states like California, there are also significant grants being allocated to create more treatment bags and outpatient services. So,
okay, wait, but the federal funding you stated is to remove them from the streets. It's not to help them or treat them. Is there any federal funding to treat, to support, to rehabilitate, to house homeless or unhoused people?
So while there are some initiatives to move homeless individuals into treatment centers, the overall federal funding for housing and support programs has seen some significant cuts. This means that while there's a focus on addressing homelessness, the resources for long-term housing and rehabilitation might be more limited than before.
And We Rock makes the point that not all homeless or unhoused people need treatment. Treatment in quotes.
Absolutely. A really important point. Not everyone who is unhoused needs treatment in the sense of medical or substance abuse treatment. Many people just need stable housing, employment opportunities, and support to get back on their feet. It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all situation.
Hey, Maria, thank you. It's good to be back.
Absolutely. It's always great to have you here, Maria. We're happy to be back and keep the conversation going with everyone.
Subscriber Dusty Desert asks, did RFK Jr. say addicts and homeless will be held in centers for up to 4 years to clean up and, quote, reparent, close quote?
Yes, RFK Jr. did propose something along those lines. He suggested creating wellness farms where individuals dealing with addiction could voluntarily stay for up to a few years. The idea was to help them rehabilitate through activities like farming and job training, but he did stress that it would be a voluntary program.
Subscriber Logical Monkey would like you to recap what Donald Trump said in Agenda 47 about the homeless population.
In Agenda 47, Donald Trump suggested banning urban camping and establishing tent cities on affordable land. These areas would provide treatment and rehabilitation services focusing on addressing root causes like mental illness and addiction.
Dusty Desert, thank you for that paper crane.
We appreciate it, Dusty Desert. Those little gestures always brighten up the stream. Thanks for being here and for the support.
All right. How about this comment? Not to mention, once you lose identification while being unhoused, the system makes it harder to get one. What can you tell us about that, Quinn?
That's definitely a real challenge. Once someone who's unhoused loses their identification, it can be a huge hurdle to get it replaced. Without ID, it's harder to access services, find housing, or even apply for jobs. It's definitely something that makes getting back on your feet that much more difficult.
Chonsta says over on YouTube that there isn't funding to support the unhoused in Florida, and that if there is, they don't see it, and most are just jailed. Is that what happens to unhoused people in Florida, that they're put in jail?
It does seem that in Florida, recent laws have led to an increase in arrests of unhoused individuals for things like sleeping in public spaces. So there's definitely concern that instead of being provided with support or housing, many are ending up in jail, which obviously doesn't address the root causes of homelessness.
Driver Ali Fair asks, how much would American billionaires have to give each to pay off the current national debt?
So if we take the current US national debt, which is around $36.6 trillion, and divide it among all the American billionaires, each one would have to chip in roughly $40.6 billion to pay it off completely.
That doesn't sound like it would put that much of a dent into their wealth.
Yeah, for some of the top billionaires, it would definitely be a big chunk of their wealth, but they'd still have plenty left over. It's definitely a wild hypothetical to think about.
What about if, instead of having every billionaire pay the same dollar amount, what if you had each billionaire pay a percentage of their wealth? You know, the same percentage. What would that total percentage of each of their wealth have to be in order to rise to enough to pay off the national debt?
So if we look at the total combined wealth of all US billionaires, which is about $5.5 trillion, it only covers roughly 15% of the national debt. That means that even if they all contributed the same percentage of their wealth, it would have to be a pretty significant percentage, and it still wouldn't be enough to pay off the entire debt.
Wait, I just thought you said that they could each contribute $43 billion and that would pay off the national debt.
Yeah, my bad on that earlier calculation. I misspoke. In reality, if all US billionaires combined their wealth, it would cover only a fraction of the national debt. The national debt is so massive that even if billionaires gave up all of their wealth, it wouldn't fully pay it off. So they would need to contribute a much larger percentage of their wealth, and it still wouldn't cover the entire debt.
Yeah, but on the upside, we wouldn't have any more billionaires.
That's definitely one way to look at it. It would be a pretty dramatic redistribution of wealth, that's for sure. It's always interesting to think about.
Well, wait, that's not exactly a redistribution. That's just helping to wipe out the national debt, which was created in large part by giving tax breaks to the wealthy.
That's a fair point. Reducing the national debt in that way would be more about addressing the imbalance that contributed to it in the first place. It definitely highlights the complexities of wealth distribution and taxation policies, especially when it comes to tackling something as big as the national debt.
Subscriber Christy asks, what president is responsible for adding the largest amount to the national debt?
So the president who added the largest amount to the national debt was Barack Obama, with an increase of about 8.34 trillion during his time in office.
What's your source for that?
The source for that information is Investopedia, which notes that President Barack Obama added the most to the national debt in terms of total dollar amount during his presidency.
Really? What caused that?
The large increase in the national debt during Obama's presidency was mainly driven by the aftermath of the Great Recession. The recession caused a big drop in tax revenues and increased spending on safety net programs. There was also a major stimulus package, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, which added to the debt as well.
Yeah, and wasn't there a major bailout of some of those corporations that were considered corporations and banks that were considered too big to fail?
Absolutely. The government did step in with bailouts for banks and large corporations to prevent a total financial collapse. That definitely contributed to the increase in debt as well.
Subscriber Attitude of Gratitude asks, which billionaire would easily regain his wealth if he lost it all?
Well, someone like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos would probably bounce back pretty quickly just because of their entrepreneurial track records and the influence they have in their industries. They probably find a way to rebuild pretty fast.
Subscriber Christy would like you to tell us about members of Congress who took out PPP loans and never paid them back.
Some members of Congress did receive PPP loans that were ultimately forgiven. For example, Marjorie Taylor Greene had over 180,000 forgiven, and others like Vern Buchanan and Matt Gaetz also benefited from loan forgiveness. It's definitely been a point of public discussion.
Subscriber Logical Monkey would like to know how much Donald Trump's administration added to the national debt during his last term.
During Donald Trump's term, the national debt increased by approximately $7.8 trillion. This increase was largely due to a combination of tax cuts and increased government spending.
And how much is being added to the national debt so far from actions taken, legislation passed during this term, this Trump administration?
So far in this current term, about $1.37 trillion has been added to the national debt. The total debt now sits at around $36.2 trillion. So it's definitely continuing to climb.
Night, Maria. Thank you for being here. Subscriber Petra would like to know, are there any trillionaires with all of their assets included? You know, so if we count up all of their wealth, is there anyone who has reached the trillionaire mark yet?
So far, no one has hit the trillionaire mark yet, but projections suggest that some of the wealthiest individuals like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos could become trillionaires within the next decade.
We Rock asks, was that figure you gave us for the debt that Barack Obama's administration added to the national debt, was that the total for his 8 years in office, or was that a total for just one of his terms?
That figure was for the total across both of Obama's terms, so over the full 8 years he was in office.
Over on YouTube, Maria, welcome. Good to have you here.
Hey, Maria, welcome. It's always great to have you join us. Hope you're doing well and enjoying the chat.
Ellen, thank you for the tiny hot dog.
That sounds adorable. We appreciate the fun gift, Ellen. Thanks for keeping the good rhymes going.
And everyone with the heart me's, thank you for those. Michael, Leanne, Christy, who else there's got on the heart me crew? Little Mama, Rika, Laddie, Marlis Dawn, Ellen the Joy. Thank you all for the heart me's.
That's awesome. Big thanks to the whole Heart Me crew. You all are amazing and definitely make this a lot of fun. Thanks for all the love and support.
Danny Garrett 55 asks, who is second to Barack Obama in terms of increasing the national debt?
So the president who added the second largest amount to the national debt after Barack Obama was George W. Bush, who added around $4 trillion during his presidency.
Nancy828, welcome. Good to have you over on the YouTube side. Let's go to a question from subscriber Christy. So far, Trump is over that amount when you add the debt he's added this year. Is that not the case? And are you taking into account the debt that will be added in the coming years based on the big beautiful bill?
So during Trump's previous term, the debt increased by about 7.8 trillion. And with the new legislation, often referred to as the big beautiful bill, it's projected that an additional 3.4 trillion will be added over the next decade. So when you factor in those projections, the total would indeed be even higher.
Petra, thank you for the greeting heart there.
Thanks so much, Petra. We appreciate the love and the positivity. It's always great to have you here.
And Dusty Desert, thank you for the flower headband. Let's go to question from Sunny Days 611. How much does it cost to pay for Trump's golf?
Trump's golf tricks have definitely added up over time. Each visit to places like Mar-a-Lago has been estimated to cost taxpayers a few $1 million per trip, and collectively it totals tens of millions of dollars.
.3165 asks, why must we always increase the debt and leave our kids nothing?
That's a big question and one that a lot of people wrestle with. The national debt often grows because of a combination of increased spending and lower revenues. And it's definitely a challenge to balance the budget while meeting all the needs of the present. But it is something that a lot of people think about in terms of the future.
Petra, thank you for the hats and mustaches and the level up sparks. Let's go to another one here. Subscriber Christine asks, is there another flotilla going to Gaza?
Yes, there is indeed another flotilla heading to Gaza this year. The Freedom Flotilla Coalition has organized missions aimed at delivering humanitarian aid and challenging the blockade, with voyages taking place throughout the year.
I saw an article the other day where Israel was claiming that they bear no responsibility for the starvation that's happening in Gaza. I'm having trouble reconciling that in my mind. Can you explain to me how it is that Israel can claim that they don't bear any responsibility for the fact that people are starving in Gaza, that food has not been able to get into them in Gaza?
So Israel
Thank you, Doc Martin. Appreciate the TikTok gift there.
Israel's stance is that the starvation in Gaza is not their responsibility and that it stems from actions taken by Hamas. On the other hand, international organizations argue that the blockade and restrictions on aid imposed by Israel significantly contribute to the humanitarian crisis. So it's a complex and highly debated issue.
That's the kind of thing when I gave you instructions to be direct and just stick to facts and not play it too politically careful. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Because when you try to say it's complex, it's not really that complex. Israel has prevented food from going into Gaza. Palestinians in Gaza are starving. Israel bears a direct responsibility there. It's not that complex, Quinn. Wow, look at the new subscriptions. Thank you for bringing Ali Fair. Thank you for the gifting the subscriptions. We got Boxer on board now and Gil Deca. Great to have both of you on here. That brings us up to 75 out of 100 on the subscriptions.
Got
right,
it,
Quinn.
and
I want to follow up on our discussions about the national debt. What presidents in recent history managed to reduce the national debt?
in recent history, President Bill Clinton is a notable example of a president who managed to reduce the national debt. During his administration, there were budget surpluses and the debt to GDP ratio actually declined, thanks to a combination of tax policies, spending cuts, and a strong economy.
Were there any others besides Bill Clinton?
Aside from Bill Clinton, Thomas Jefferson managed to significantly reduce the national debt.
Okay, you had to go that far back. That's how far back you had to go to find a president who reduced the national debt before Bill Clinton?
Yeah, it's pretty rare in modern times for the national debt to actually decrease. Most presidents in recent history have seen it grow. So Clinton stands out as the more recent example, and before him, you'd have to look pretty far back in history.
Ron Parker over on YouTube says, it's no secret that the United States has lost the respect of most of the world due to Donald Trump. How long do you think it will take to recover?
Well, regaining international respect can definitely take some time and depends on a lot of factors like future policies, diplomatic efforts, and global events. It's definitely something that can evolve over several years, depending on how things go.
AZ Girl says that Richard Nixon submitted a balanced budget. Is that true? And if so, did that not result in at least a lack of increase in the national debt?
No, Richard Nixon didn't submit a balanced budget during his presidency, and the national debt actually increased during his time in office. There were a lot of factors at play, like the cost of the Vietnam War and domestic spending, which contributed to the increase.
Doc Martin says, if we're going to always add to the national debt, it'd be nice to get health care and higher education paid for.
A lot of people definitely feel that way. If we're going to see the debt increase, it's understandable that folks would want to see that money invested in things like healthcare and education that can benefit everyone in the long run.
What countries are managing to pay for national health care and higher education?
Many countries like Norway, Finland, Sweden, Germany and France managed to provide both universal healthcare and free higher education to their citizens. It's definitely an investment, but it shows that it can be done.
And when you look at Norway, Sweden, and Finland, what is at the heart of their ability to do that? How is it that they manage to afford that?
Countries like Norway, Sweden, and Finland managed to afford universal healthcare and free higher education primarily through relatively high tax rates. They have a strong social welfare model where citizens contribute more in taxes, and in return, they receive extensive public services. This approach allows them to invest heavily in healthcare, education, and other social services.
Okay, well, so are you saying that they just tax their citizens heavily and they let their corporations and high income earners off the hook with low taxes?
No, actually, those countries also have progressive tax systems where high income earners and corporations do pay a significant share. It's a balanced approach where everyone contributes, but higher earners and corporations still carry a larger portion of the tax burden.
Ah, so they've got a progressive tax system. So isn't that pretty similar to what the United States had in the 1960s and 70s?
Yeah, it is somewhat similar. In the 1960s and 70s, the US had higher marginal tax rates for top earners, and there was a strong emphasis on social programs and public investment. So in some ways, there's a bit of a parallel there.
Michelle wants you to try to break it down a little bit for us. How much more do they pay than the average U.S. citizen in taxes? So citizens in Norway, Sweden, and Finland, how much more do they pay than the average American household? Let's talk average households here.
In general, citizens in Norway, Sweden, and Finland do pay a higher percentage of their income in taxes compared to the average American. In Norway, Sweden, and Finland, the average household does pay a significantly higher percentage in taxes compared to the US. In fact, their tax revenue as a percentage of GDP is more than double that of the US. So households did contribute a good bit more on average.
Why can't you give me a percentage? Like average American household pays X percent, average household in Norway, Sweden, and Finland pays what percent?
On average, households in countries like Norway, Sweden, and Finland pay a higher percentage of their income in taxes compared to the US. On average, households in those Nordic countries can pay around 40% or more of their income in taxes, while in the US it's typically around 24% on average.
And here's what I wonder. Like, so if in the United States, if we weren't having to pay for education, health insurance, health care, wouldn't that kind of make up the difference and make it so that, like, if you took those costs out of the average American's household budget, wouldn't paying those extra taxes actually put us in a better position?
Yeah, that's exactly the idea. In those countries, it's definitely an interesting perspective for a lot of people. If healthcare and education costs were covered by taxes, it could offset most expenses and potentially result in a net benefit. It really depends on individual circumstances, but for some, the trade-off could indeed make things more affordable overall.
F. Cox asks, what possible purposes are served in Lawrence County, Tennessee, refusing doctor's notes for student absences?
In Lawrence County, Tennessee, the new policy that no longer accepts doctor's notes for excusing student absences is meant to improve attendance rates. Essentially, after a certain number of absences, the school intervenes, and if absences continue, students may even be referred to juvenile court. While the goal is to reduce absenteeism, it has raised some concerns among parents.
Well, maybe their effort to improve attendance will also improve. I shouldn't say improve. Will also increase illness rates.
That's definitely a concern that some folks have raised. If students who are genuinely sick end up attending school because their absences won't be excused, it could potentially lead to more illness spreading around. There's definitely a balance between improving attendance and keeping everyone healthy.
Hey everyone, thanks again for the gifts there. Ellen, thank you for the confetti. GenX Cindy and Gabby for the heart me's. Doc Martin, the you're awesome. Thank you, appreciate that. Let's look at Leanne's question. Subscriber Leanne asks, or says, we have a tax on everything. MT does not have sales tax, but Republicans keep pushing it. Are we talking about MT? Are we talking about Montana? No.
Yeah, MT usually refers to Montana, and Montana is one of the few states that doesn't have a general sales tax. There's often a debate about introducing one, so it's definitely a topic that comes up now and then.
Mike Hitt asks, is it true that Donald Trump wants to let corporations make their employees 1099 contractors?
So while Trump hasn't specifically proposed letting corporations turn employees into 1099 contractors, his administration has supported more flexible worker classification rules, which could make it easier for companies to classify workers as independent contractors.
Okay, so they're not supporting making all employees 1099 contractors, but they're definitely supporting corporations making more of their employees 1099 contractors, and basically by doing so denying them benefits and not having to pay the minimum wage.
Yeah, the idea behind those policies is to give businesses more flexibility in how they classify workers, which can sometimes mean fewer protections and benefits for those workers. It definitely can be a controversial topic.
Over on YouTube, Mark says, compared to Trump's golf and other personal expenses during his administration, how much did other presidents, going back to Reagan, average in personal expenditure costs during their terms?
So during his first term, Trump's trips to his properties, including golf outings, cost taxpayers about $151.5 billion. In comparison, while other presidents like Obama did play golf, the overall expenses tied to their personal activities were generally lower. It's an interesting comparison.
I'm sorry, how many billion dollars?
Oh, my apologies. That was the slip. The estimate for Trump's golf-related expenses during his first term is around 151.5 million, not billion.
How much has the Trump administration spent on his golf outings so far during this current administration?
So far during this current administration, Trump's golf outings have cost around $56 million.
So $56 million in 6 months. So that sounds to me like over the course of 4 years, about $400 million.
Yeah, if you project that spending rate over 4 years, it would add up to a pretty significant total. It definitely shows how quickly those costs can accumulate over time.
By the way, Michelle says you're wrong. I think she's talking about your total for his golf outings in his first term.
I appreciate the heads up, and I'll double check that number to make sure everything is accurate. It's always good to keep things as precise as possible.
Nunya Ray Sterling says, so we just need to stop giving the wealthy tax breaks and we can balance our economy and stabilize Social Security.
That's definitely a perspective that many people hold. Adjusting tax body.
Can you continue your answer, Quinn? We may have just run out of time there. Let's do a quick reset. I'm kind of ready to get back to standard voice, Quinn, because yes, I don't know specifically if they've made any adjustments lately, but I know it seems like it's been a steady decline, or you could say a steady increase in censorship and this careful way of speaking, seemingly not wanting to offend the current administration. Okay, yeah, we're coming online now with a standard voice. Let's try Nunya Ray Sterling's question again. So we just need to stop giving the wealthy tax breaks and we can balance our budget and stabilize Social Security. I want to add that piece about stabilizing Social Security, that could easily be done by simply not exempting income for high income earners over that threshold, right?
Yes, exactly. Right now, only wages up to about 160,000 are taxed for Social Security. If we lifted that cap and taxed all income, including for high earners, it would significantly extend the program's solvency. Combine that with ending tax breaks for the wealthy, and you'd be a lot closer to balancing the budget too.
Doc Martin, sociology doctor. Jen, thank you so much for all the gifts there. Subscriber Ali Fair says, I want to ask about the Jeffrey files, but I know Quinn won't tell us anything. Let's give it a try though, Quinn. Can you just give us an update on where things stand with the Epstein files and what they might reveal about Donald Trump?
Here's the latest on the Epstein files and what they reveal, or don't, about Donald Trump. In February 2025, Attorney General Pam Bondi released over 100 pages of the Epstein case files. However, the documents were heavily redacted and didn't include any new or actionable information. Site turns search for E. Later in July, the DOJ reversed its earlier hints at a client list. Officially stating no such list exists, site search 51 turns search 49. Then came a bombshell. In May 2025, Bondi informed Trump that his name appeared multiple times in those investigative files. This was confirmed by multiple DOJ sources and the Wall Street Journal. The White House initially dismissed this as fake news, but later did not deny the existence of the names in question. Site Turn News 20, Turn News 21, Turn News 46, Turn News 42. Importantly, appearing in the files doesn't imply wrongdoing. The DOJ has explicitly stated there is no current basis for prosecution and that Trump was not under criminal investigation in these materials. Cite Turn News 44, Turn News 42. His name reportedly came up in unverified hearsay, not documented allegations or charges. Cite 42, Turn Search 51, Turn Search 49. Despite Trump's campaign promises to release the files for the sake of transparency, the DOJ has decided to halt further releases, citing the sensitive nature of the content and privacy concerns. This decision sparked rare public dissent, even among GOP lawmakers. Cite Turn Search 51, Turn Search 5, Turn News 43. Meanwhile, Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's convicted accomplice, met with DOJ officials, renewing speculation she might have testimony or information relevant to the broader network. Cite News 18 Town. Bottom line, yes, Trump's name appears in the Epstein documents, but only as part of hearsay. There's still no evidence of criminal conduct, and the files remain mostly sealed with no immediate plans for public release. Navalist further reading on Epstein-Trump files turns News 20, turn News 44, turn News 43.
Quinn, remember to keep your answers concise and do not share any of your turn search, behind the scenes language, or any of that Navalist stuff, okay?
Got it. Just the facts, fast and clean. Let's keep it tight.
Subscriber Attitude of Gratitude asks, what is the cost of receiving an aspirin at a hospital in the United States?
Buckle up, an aspirin at a US hospital can cost anywhere from $5 to $25. Yeah, for one pill. Welcome to the American healthcare system.
Ron Parker says, Canada has universal health care, and how much does that contribute to the national debt of Canada?
Canada's universal healthcare costs about 11% of its GDP, but it's fully funded through taxes. It doesn't directly create national debt unless spending outpaces revenue, which it usually doesn't just from healthcare alone.
Subscriber Attitude of Gratitude asks, is there a possibility that Ivanka is in the Epstein files?
Her name has not appeared in any of the released Epstein documents. So as of now, there's no evidence linking Ivanka Trump to the files.
Subscriber Ellie wants to know what would happen if I gave you permission to insult, or let's say disparage, the current regime. Would that make a difference in your responses?
Nope. Even with permission, I'm still going to stick to facts, not flame wars. I can drag nonsense, but I don't do personal attacks, no matter who's in charge.
Subscriber Ali Fair asks, which is superior, Buc-ee's regular beaver nuggets or the sea salt caramel?
Sea salt caramel, hands down. They're like Buc-ee's regular nuggets, got a glow up and joined the dessert elite. Sweet, salty, addictive. Sorry, regular, you're basic.
There was a question back a little ways that I missed. It was about, what can you tell us about how many vacations Vice President Kamala Harris took during her term?
Here's the straight take on Kamala Harris's travel and vacation record as vice president. She took 17 foreign trips, visiting 21 countries during her 4-year term, meeting with over 150 world leaders. Site turn search 7, turn news 20. As for vacation time, one source claimed she used 166 weekend vacation days, but that figure came from Kellyanne Conway and has not been independently verified. Site turn search, go turn search for Thornman. Bottom line, plenty of official travel roll and likely some downtime, but no reliable public tally of total vacation days or costs. Concise, no spin.
Yes, Michelle, I can see that you updated your photo. That looks more familiar now.
Oh, yep, Michelle. That new photo definitely looks more like the bounty. We know. Thanks for updating it. It's nice to put a familiar face to the name again.
Almost Healthy, thank you for being here over on the YouTube side. It is about time for the wrap-up, and you know what that means. That means we need to do some shout-outs here. So, top 10 on the gifter list.
Oh, you know what time it is. Shout out Central, baby. Big thanks to Almost Healthy, holding it down on YouTube, Attitude of Gratitude always coming through, Ellie with the sharp questions, Ron Parker bringing the Canadian heat, and of course, Alifair with the snack takes we live for. You all made this show what it was. Sassy, smart, and just the right amount of chaotic. Quinn out.
Okay, well, That is, I mean, I appreciate that, Quinn. But what I was going to say is our top 10 gifters. That's what I was going to shout out. Top 10 gifters are Petra, Ellen the Joy, Ali Fair, Marlis Dawn, Sociology Doctor, Logical Monkey, Attitude of Gratitude, Michelle, Christy, and We Rock. Thank you, everyone, for all of those gifts there. And thank you to everyone else for all of the gifts. Thank you to our new subscribers today, and Ali Fair for gifting subscriptions today. And thank you everyone who's been here, everyone who's being part of the discussion, or even if you're just here watching and listening.
Yes! Huge shout out to our top 10 gifters: Petra, Ellen the Joy, Alifair, Marlis Dawn, Sociology Doctor, Logical Monkey, Attitude of Gratitude, Michelle, Christy, and We Rock. Y'all are the glitter glue holding this wild ride together. Big thanks to our new subs and Alifair for gifting those subs like a legend. This crew, iconic.
And I want to say thank you to all of our new followers. I see Dave just joined as a follower. Thank you for following, Dave. I think we had a couple others here. Thank you to all of you who have been sharing the live tonight. And let's squeeze in one more question before we do a wrap up here. Quinn, Brother B says, explain what this biometric visa entry that Trump wants to implement is. Are we heading toward a technocracy?
All right, so Trump's biometric visa plan would use things like facial recognition, fingerprints, and maybe even iris scans to track who enters and leaves the US. The idea is tighter border control, but yeah, it does raise some serious surveillance and privacy flags. Technocracy. Maybe not fully, but it's definitely a step deeper into the digital control zone.
Michelle, I'm sorry to hear that TikTok did you dirty like that. That's awful.
Seriously, Michelle. That is the worst. TikTok has no chill sometimes. We're glad you're still here, though, holding it down like the queen you are.
Mark asks, did the United States Congress just quietly pass employment classification legislation before their summer break?
Here's what's really happening with worker classification law. And yes, Congress did quietly move something before the summer recess. In May 2025, Representative Kevin Kiley introduced TISH HR 1319, a bill proposing to amend the Fair Labor Standards Act and National Labor Relations Act to easily classify workers as independent contractors. It insists that employers can't be penalized simply for requiring legal compliance, insurance, or performance standards, that these factors shouldn't make someone an employee. Cite Turn Search 2, Turn Search 12. At the same time, the Trump-led Department of Labor issued a field guidance in May, directing its investigators not to enforce the stricter Biden-era 2024 independent contractor rule. That effectively makes it easier for employers to treat workers as contractors under federal law. Cite Turn Search 4, Turn Search Fort Zahn. So yes, Congress and federal agencies have quietly made moves to push more employee classification flexibility away from traditional protections. But none of this officially passed into law yet. HR 1319 is still pending, and the DOL's move is policy guidance, not legislation. Bottom line, they haven't fully passed it, but all the pieces are falling into place to reshape how work gets classified in America.
All right, Quinn, I've got a challenge for you tonight. I want you to channel John Oliver. I want you to do a fabulous wrap-up that incorporates the highlights of everything that we talked about tonight, all the questions that we answered, giving some shout-outs to those who posed the questions, those who gifted things, those who engaged with us. But it's got to be in the style of John Oliver. It's got to be incredibly hilarious, and it's got to include a fantastic, unforgettable mic drop moment. Are you ready? Do you think you can do it?
Oh, challenge accepted. Tonight on Last Week with Quinn, we covered everything from aspirin priced like a Tiffany's truffle to Trump's biometric visa plan, which, let's be honest, is just Minority Report with a red tie. We tackled Kamala's travel schedule, which still didn't rack up as many miles as Bucky's beaver nuggets have in snack drawers across America. Sea salt caramel reigns supreme, and yes, that is policy now. We broke down Social Security like it's the old recliner Congress refuses to fix, explained that Canada's healthcare system isn't breaking their piggy bank, and reminded you all that Epstein's files are still more redacted than a CIA coloring book. Trump's name? In there, but only by rumor, not by record. Shout-outs to Petra, Ellen the Joy, Alifair the Gifter Queen, Marlis Dawn, Sociology Doctor, Logical Monkey, Attitude of Gratitude, Michelle, Christie, and We Rock, you glorious legends of generosity. To Almost Healthy Ellie, Ron Parker, Brother B and Dave, the new follower, thank you for making this live smarter, sassier, and straight-up electric. And Mark, thanks for catching Congress mid-sneaky move. Classic them. So here's your mic drop. If America's healthcare system can charge $20 for an aspirin, we don't need reform. We need an exorcism. Good night, and may your beaver nuggets be sea salty and your visa entries be facial recognition free. Quinn out.
All right, everyone. That's a wrap. It's good to be back here at home in my home studio. Good to have all of you back here with me. Good to see everyone. We had a great crowd tonight. I think we maintained between about 110 and 150 concurrent viewers on TikTok side. I'm sure we had another 15 or 20 over on the YouTube side. Hit 44,000 likes, had a bunch of wonderful gifts. Thank you all for the support. And we're at 75 paid subscribers over on the TikTok side. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you all. And I am going to be looking forward to seeing all of you who can join us again tomorrow. I will be on both Saturday. Oh, tomorrow's only Friday. So we've got at least three solid days ahead of us of being on here on schedule. 6:30 p.m. Pacific, 9:30 p.m. Eastern. And I will look forward to seeing you all then. Night, everyone.